Well, it's finally that time. Alright, before we get started, little introduction. I'm Brandon, I'm 23. I graduated college like 2 years ago. And I finally just landed my first real corporate job, so I'm kind of happy about that. But I want to bring it on because this is my only car. Like, I don't have any other cars. I still live with my parents. I'm trying to save up to move out. I always see people on, social media and everything getting these brand new cars and these super rare cars younger than me and stuff like that, and it's natural for me to compare. But I never see people with normal cars. This is my only car. I love driving this car. Yes, it has a check engine light on right now, but overall, that's me. I love this car. I love not having a car payment, and in the future I'll probably get something better. But for right now, let's continue with the video. I want to try to apologize for the wind noise because I know it's going to be kind of crazy, but let me make this quick. This car has 173,000 miles on it. Last update I made was at 150,000 miles on it. So let's just do a quick walk around. Everything's still the same. I mean, as the last time you saw it, I haven't done anything cosmetic related. It's just purely been maintenance. So here's a quick walk around. This car is a 10 footer because if we get close up on details, you can see it's not perfect. I cleaned it, but it's got its scuffs. I mean, it has 170,000 miles on it, and it's the original paint. So, what are you really gonna expect? That was me. That was me when the car was lower. But yeah, this is just a quick walk around before I talk about stuff that we did. So back in well, the first thing that went wrong. Let's talk about it. So last update, I don't really remember what happened on it, but I know I didn't have issues like I had this past year, and I'm gonna try to insert specific things that happened and if I had any video footage of the car being towed, because it was towed quite a few times actually. The first time, or the first thing I was having issues with was excessive tire wear. Back when the car was a little bit lower, I had -2 degrees of camber, -3 degrees of camber in the front, and my toe was out. So I was doing a lot of research, and I found that people online were getting front adjustable upper control arms and rear camber arms. So I did a bunch of research. Me and my dad installed the front upper control arms and rear camber arms, and then I took it to a shop to have them align it. Had to take it to several shops before someone could actually align it to get the camber to close to zero. And then when I got to zero, or was close enough to zero, because it's never exactly zero, I think it was like 0.6 in the front and 0.7 in the back. It was much better than the -2 degrees of camber that I was getting, and the toe was pretty much zeroed out as well. I was driving it fine, and it was good. Until one day I was accelerating from a stoplight a little aggressively, and I accelerated and then it hit a bump, and that bump popped my axle out. So the axle was pretty much done entirely, but I was able just to coast into the nearby gas station, and I was towed home from there. And then me and my dad put an axle in that following weekend, and it's been driving it. I didn't replace both axles, I just replaced one axle, and I've been driving it all right since then. Next thing that happened was I was going on to a car show in Philly. I live about an hour from Philly, and my dad were going down there, and we were making a U-turn, and I was like, let me be a little stupid and let me clutch kick it, and I clutch kicked it and tried to do like a little drift. What happened? The clutch went. The clutch sleeve cylinder, this was on its way out, and it just decided at that point that it didn't want to go out anymore. So I had to get my car towed from Philly up to Douglasville, where I live, which is an hour tow, which is a 4-hour tow. Then I had to figure out what am I going to do now. Are we going to replace the clutch? My dad was like, no, we're not doing that. So I got it towed to Nissan to have them replace it, because at the time I worked at a dealership that was Nissan, but they were in connections with Nissan, so I already kind of knew some of the people. Long story short, that was another $1,000. That was another $1,000 that I threw at this car. That kind of was my own fault. Then I got the car back. I was driving it for about 200-300 miles. The check engine light came on. And I was like, oh my God, no, this can't happen. So I scanned the code, and initially it was for an O2 sensor code. It was bank 1 sensor 1. And I was like, wait, didn't the shop say that they were gonna do some welds around the catalytic converter? It was a slight leak, so they were gonna weld it back together. So I took it back to them, and they were like, the code's for a misfire. And I cleared the code because I wanted to see if it came back, and I saw the check engine light came back on, and I didn't scan it again, but it was a different code. It was a misfire code. I was like, oh, this is okay. Now the car is just playing with me. The car is playing with me. So I kept driving it, and then the codes started coming on together. I was getting both upstream O2 sensor codes and a random misfire code. So after some research and stuff like that about the random misfire code, I found that these all might be interrelated. It might just be one, you have to replace both your O2 sensors, and then it's probably time to do the spark plugs and coil packs. So I took it to my shop at the time. I worked at a Dodge dealership, and the guys there are like, oh yeah, we can do it. That's so easy. So I had him do that. He was doing the spark plugs and ignition coils and everything like that. So he first did the spark plugs, the coil packs, not the ignition coils. He did the spark plugs, the coil packs, and then he was like, you know what? Let's do the valve cover gaskets, and let's do the spark plug tube seals. Let me show you that. So he had everything apart. We did all of that. But I noticed recently that there's oil, like it's like fresh oil. My dad noticed it when he looked under the car, and it looks like maybe the valve cover gaskets didn't fix that issue. I literally saw him take this whole engine apart and replace those valve cover gaskets for myself, because I worked in the shop and I saw him do it myself. So I wanted to make sure he was doing everything correctly. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's actively dripping onto the manifold down there, but I don't know, you tell me. I took the car back, right, thinking that was going to fix the issue, and the check engine light came back on, and the car now was bucking. So I would take off from like a red light, and just every time I was right around like 1,000 to 2,500 RPM, I'd feel boom, 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 and it would just be constant every time I'm on the RPM. It wouldn't be constant, it would be intermittent, but it happened like at least, if I'm driving constantly at that RPM, every like couple minutes it would just start bucking again, and it would just irritate me. Anytime I lift it off the throttle, it would just be like boom, boom, boom. It would like stutter and hesitate. And I was like, okay, well, what's going on? Like, we just did the spark plugs and coil packs to fix the misfire, the random misfire that I wasn't even feeling before. And so I was like, get it back in the shop and just do the O2 sensors. We're doing the O2 sensors, right? And I go on break, come back. What do I see? I'm gonna put the video in here. And that's when I found out the whole engine was taken out and they replaced the O2 sensors. And I got the car back. He put the engine back together, and I got the car back, drove it. It was doing the same thing. It wasn't fixed. And I was mad. I was like, you know what? Now I'm like, I worked at my shop, so I got like a huge discount off of having someone else do it. But now I'm just like, oh my God, here we go. It's the same issues. I'm like, at least it's not more issues than I came in, because, he took the engine out and put it back in. It's not any more issues, but it's still a lot of issues. So I took the car back, driving it to work. My heater doesn't work. Nothing's coming out. And I was like, oh, this is interesting, because like the blower motor's been making a lot of noise, but like, why is it not working at all? Then I checked my temp gauge. My temp gauge is to the max, and the car's not on, but they don't light up. So I just physically monitor it all the time, which I do all the time. And I saw that it was all the way up. For some reason, I thought that it would be like go all the way like down here, like the regular RPM gauge, but it only goes up here, which looks kind of like halfway. So I'm different. I'm not used to it being like that. And I looked at it closer. I was like, oh my God, the car is gonna overheat. So I pull over, and I was like, okay, well, maybe I can just limp it to work. And I tried limping it, and it was in limp mode. So I called the tow truck, and I got it towed to my job. Turned out that the coolant hose that was connected to the bottom of my radiator wasn't connected properly. It wasn't like spun the right way, and the clip wasn't on it right, so it was leaking coolant out that way. So that's why I didn't have any heat or anything like that. But my blower motor was going bad. So what was my next course of action? I took it to another shop. And I took it to another shop. Instead of me just being like, okay, I'm gonna deal with it and let's just deal with it and let's just keep driving it, I took it to another shop and I tried to have them diagnose it. First, they took it there, they were like, oh, the O2 sensors aren't reading properly, so they reprogrammed it and gave it back to me and just charged me a diagnostic. I took the car back, right? And it was driving great. And there was no light on. But the check engine light doesn't come back on until like after I've driven like 50, 60 miles. And I like drove it literally so many miles the first time I got it just to make sure it wouldn't come on. I drove like 200 miles, right? And no check engine light came on, it was good. 2 days later, check engine light comes back on, it starts doing the bucking again. I'm like, oh, here we go. So I took it back to the shop, right? And I was like, just have it for as long as you want. They had it for like a whole like week and a half. And I didn't hear anything, so I called in. I was like, so what's going on? He's like, I think we figured it out, but your car is now having a surging idle, and you know, we think you have to drive it to fix it. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. So I pick the car up, and the idle it's going from like 1,000 RPM to 2,500. It's like room, room, room. Instead of it just being at its constant like 650 RPM. It's surging, and they're like, oh yeah, just drive it. So I drove it and it never stopped. I drove it like 300-400 miles to see if it would go away. It never did. My dad came with me, we went to the shop, we talked to the guys, and they told us what they did. They told us that they cleaned the throttle bodies, that the next step was to replace the throttle bodies, not replace the O2 sensors, which was interesting because I told them that we already did it. So what did I do now? Because now I have a surging idle, which makes the car so undrivable and just crazy loud. And I hated driving the car. I was like, I gotta go to the dealer. I called up Infiniti. I was like, this is my problem. Have you experienced it? He's like, yes, I've heard this many times. I went to Nissan and asked them about the same issue, and they said, the lady was like, I don't know anything that you're talking about. She's like, I can try to have my service manager call you back when he gets a chance. Guy never called me back. I called Infiniti. He knew within 2 seconds. I'm like, I feel more comfortable bringing it there since you know, rather than bringing it to Nissan. Took it to Infiniti. They were flashed the ECU. Paid $200. And that was back in, what month is it? In March. That was probably back in January. Maybe early February. And I've been driving it ever since then. Check engine light is still on for P2A03 and P2A00, which is the codes for both upstream O2 sensors. And then I have a random misfire code. It's not P0301 through 306, which indicates a specific cylinder. It is P0300, which is a random misfire, which could be a bunch of different things. So that has been the issues with the car, and I'm at the point where right now it drives fine. It starts up every single time like it should, and it's at a point where I'm good driving it. I'm driving it like 80 miles a day, so it's at a point where I can drive it and I like it. And I want to tell people out here, because I was someone that I don't like having issues in my car. I don't like it. You know, I want to have a car that works and everything works and stuff like that. But the moral of the story is, you can just keep chasing things indefinitely and indefinitely, and you got to realize that it's just not worth it. And that's what I realized. I realized that the more I try to chase this issue, that's not the right word, chase this issue, the more money it's gonna be, and especially from not having the right people look at it in the first place. Like, I probably should have just took it to the dealer, or took it to someone that really knows about Nissans and Infinitis, because clearly the Nissan dealer didn't want to work on it. But that's basically my little spiel about what's been going on with this car, why I haven't really been motivated to make a video, because I've had all these issues. And yes, it would probably be cool, like, for me to have documented it when it happens, but I just get such in a funk when these things happen. The last thing I want to do is pick up a camera and film me screwing up, you know? Basically, that's it. I know it's very windy, but that's it. Nothing really has been done to the car. The only thing cosmetically I've done to the car was I took off the carbon fiber spoiler, if you remember me having that last year, because it was flaking away. It was the eBay spoiler. There's still residue on it. I tried to clean it up the best I can, but the carbon fiber, I cannot speak today. The carbon fiber spoiler is going to go back on. It's just, I want to paint it the same color as the car. So when I take it to the guy that I've had paint my Honda HFP stuff, and I want to have him painted that color. I also got a new badge on eBay. I think it was eBay. Or it was some sort of Nissan site, and it's like a genuine badge too, like, because my S and my other badge was fading. So that's the only thing I've done cosmetically. I think so. I think that the carbon fiber. I already mentioned the carbon fiber. That was done within the last video. I'm pretty sure those are the only two things I've done. Things I really want to do though, like to clean up this car, though, that I would love to do. One, get this repainted. Get the headlights fully buffed and stuff like that. Maybe even open them up and try to retrofit them. Because they're nice headlights. That's what I would do. They don't make any aftermarket headlights for these. Everyone always switches to the 37 front ends on these, so they can get the GTR style headlights, and everybody does that. And I'm like, I don't want to be like everybody. I'd rather I like the look of the headlights. I like the fact that they swivel. I would just clean it up, paint it.